Hello everyone, I'm Ben Eagle, a rural affairs podcaster, and welcome to this second of two Young Farmers podcast episodes in which we're talking about the opportunities and threats for young people in rural businesses today, and encouraging you to ask whether starting a business is the right thing for you and what skills you might need to prepare for your future. Today we'll be focusing on what you should expect if you start your own rural business and the skills that you may need. And I'm joined once again by Dr. Richard Byrne, who's a senior lecturer in land management and food security at Harper Adams University, and he's also part of the Rural Resilience Research Group. And I'm also joined by Polly Gibb, OBE, who is also based at Harper and is the Director of Women in Rural Enterprise. Richard, Polly, welcome back. It's good to have you on again. Richard, let's start with you. And I think let's start with this idea that starting a business isn't going to be the right thing for everyone. What are some of the things that would make it clearer that starting a business is the right route for you? If we have a listener thinking, I don't know what the right thing to do is, what's that thing that would be saying, yes, this is the route to start a business?
It can be a very personal thing. And I think we have to look beyond our enthusiasm for certain activities. You know, you might like dairy cows, you might like sheep, you might like keeping goats, whatever the enterprise. I think you need to sit back and think about your position in the market. What are you going to offer? But also think about what's the market going to offer you? Is it going to offer you lots of barriers to get through? And are you the sort of person who can navigate those barriers? Do you have a good network behind you? Do you have a supportive partner or family? Do you have links to people where you can talk things through? I think some of the lessons we learned from our new entrants pilot at Harper Adams was that people really value talking and talking through ideas, and having those signposts there to get advice or perhaps even just a different point of view on an enterprise. So enthusiasm is great, but you also need to look in the 360 and also be honest to yourself as well. Starting a business is challenging. It's long hours. We can all say we can deal with that, but perhaps you have other pulls on that time. Maybe you have young children, or you have a college course to do, or another job to do. So it's about understanding your level of resilience and also your level of risk. That's not to say that you abandon those ideas, because you can revisit them. Because just because you can't do it in this position now doesn't mean it's a daft idea or a poor idea or it's not going to work. It just means it's not the right time. And there are lots of examples of businesses which spring into life at the right time.
Polly, for anyone out there who's thinking about this, what are some of the questions that you should ask yourself before taking steps to starting a business?
I think a very important question, or something to kind of think about, is how comfortable you are with uncertainty. So this is one of those questions, kind of, is running a business, running your own business for you? Some people like to have everything in place and like to have a level of, it's not so much security, but a level of kind of security in terms of what's going to happen and how it's going to be. Other people are very okay with uncertainty, not quite knowing what's going to happen and actually enjoying that. I think if you know that you're the sort of person who kind of likes to know what's going to happen and likes to be able to make plans, and then that's how it is, possibly setting up your own business. There might be some types of business that are like that, but I think you'd think carefully about it, or you might want to do it with somebody else who's willing to sort of embrace that, able to cope with that uncertainty. Because running a business, it's like being in a washing machine. You just, all the time, things are changing. You're sort of coming up for air. You think you've got it sussed, something else happens. You have to reinvent this. You have to change that, tweak that. More than kind of skills, I think it's that, ask yourself that and be honest. As Richard said, be honest with yourself. If you're just not that sort of person, if you hate things being weird and changeable, then probably don't set up a business. Go and be fantastic in somebody else's business and really contribute to that. If you are going to set up a business, the things you need to concentrate on, so the questions you need to ask yourself are, what is your motivation and where does your idea for this business come from? So by your motivation, what I mean is, does it come from a wish to kind of solve a problem? Does it come from a wish to change the world? Does it come from a wish to make a living from a resource that you've got, or to make a living in a place that you want to be. So kind of understand where you are coming from for your business. Understand what your values are, because if you know what your values are, it helps you understand what it is you're trying to succeed with and achieve. So do you want to be a multimillionaire? Do you want to be Richard Branson? Do you want to rule the world? Or do you just want to make a living in a certain place? Because it's very easy to kind of get pulled in different directions. So it's very important to know what success looks like for you and what you are trying to achieve, not what the world tells you you ought to be trying to succeed. But also the thing about values is it helps you articulate your values to your customers. Increasingly, customers are buying not just a thing, but they're buying, as Richard said earlier, a story, some intangible things that go with that thing. So there might be environmental goods, it might be sort of social value. If your business motivation has some of those things right at the start, it helps you understand that and articulate that to your customers and identify who your customers are, because they will be people who have the same values as you do. It's no good trying to sell environmentally fantastic, ethical products to customers who don't value those things, because you're selling them something that they don't want. So it will help you tell the story and it'll help you identify who your customers are. Thirdly, again, to echo something that Richard said, I would have a look around at your network and your contacts, because if you're starting up a business from scratch, you don't have everything in-house. You can't do absolutely everything. So, and it can be very isolating. You'll be working long hours. You can become very bogged down. So look around to your network, to who can help you, who you can collaborate with, who you can just go for coffee with once a month and just let off steam and think about ideas. Who can you subcontract work to? So think about all those people out there who are going to become part of the infrastructure of your business.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point. And take it from me, listeners, those early days of starting a business, it can be very isolating and lonely. And if you have a good team of people around you, you don't need to be employing those people, but those people involved in your network see who can support you. And a lot of people will say yes. So look for help where you can. You've spoken a lot there, Polly, about almost on the sort of the outlook side of things. What about the skills? What skills do those entering the workplace or starting a business need today? We spoke in our first episode about needing to adapt to changing situations. But what about practical skills? What is industry calling for today?
Talking to your customers. So talking to people and communicating with who you think might be your customers. And that sounds really, really obvious. And it doesn't really sound like a skill, but it is a skill and it is a thing. It is a thing that you need to develop mechanisms for. And it is strangely one of the things that a lot of the businesses that I've worked with, the reason their business isn't quite taking off and isn't quite working, it's because they haven't developed that skill and those mechanisms for talking to their customers. I think the skill and the mechanisms of talking and receiving information, not talking at your customers. I think financial astuteness. In the first couple of years of running your business, you need to really, really understand your figures. You need to understand where the money's going, where the money is coming from, and the flow of cash through your business. Now, that's both the quantities, but also the timing of, the cash flow. So when money goes out, when money comes in, and how those two things relate to each other. Okay, because you can have a theoretically very profitable business that crashes because the money goes out way before the money comes in. So I think if you are not somebody who's confident with kind of financial astuteness and numbers, you need to at least get to know how to work a spreadsheet and how to sort of plan money coming in and money going out. You probably will need an accountant, but don't just give it all out to an accountant, because you as the business owner, you need to understand that cash flow, because that's how you understand where the profit comes from and where the money goes. Some things you can contract out and think, I'm rubbish at that, I'm going to get somebody else who's brilliant at it to do it. Some things you need to have a real understanding of. in addition to contracting it out. And finances, I'd say, is one of them, certainly in the early days. And then the third skill I'd say is, it's a little bit to communicating with your customers, but it's social media, particularly small businesses. Social media can be a fantastic opportunity. It can also be an absolute disaster. So decide whether you're going to do your own social media or not. I am absolutely rubbish at social media. I have a slight phobia about it. I would contract that out to somebody else. I'd get somebody who's really, really good and loves that world to do that. So social media kind of marketing and presence on the internet, either acquire it as a skill or decide how you're going to achieve that for your business.
Oh, so much in there, Polly. Richard, over to you. In terms of investing in your skills and your education over time, when we were planning for this podcast, we had a conversation about actually that we need to move away from a mindset that you just learn everything at the beginning and then you carry on and then that's it. Especially in today's world, you have to be constantly learning. So what about the importance of lifelong learning?
I think the most important thing is to understand where you're going to get that support from. And there's lots of people out there selling training courses and all sorts of things. But I always say to people, look at your local tech college, your FE college, your sixth form, look at your local agricultural college or your local university. What are they offering in terms of lifelong learning and short courses? A, they're likely to be a lot cheaper, and B, they're generally over a period of time. So you're going to build your skill over time and reflect on it. And that makes a better learning experience. You retain much more. Going on a social media course for a whole day is very intense. You'll come out and you'll forget most of it. If you did it over 10 weeks at your local FE college in the evening, you would interact with more people. You'll develop your learning a lot more, and you'll have personal time with the tutor. And I think that's really important. So recognizing when you need some training or you need to expand your information, but also talk to people about who've gone through similar things. What did they do? Sometimes you don't need an IT course. You can find the answer on the internet of how to do things. Lots of videos out there. It depends what level you're looking at, but certainly in terms of growing and developing your business, learn from what other people have done and the mistakes they've done. You don't have to do a master's degree in business to have a business, but you might need to do something on, understanding accounting, or you might just need to improve your awareness of tax. I don't like it. I did a short course a 4-day course on understanding tax many years ago. Absolutely loathed it. Best thing I've ever done.
Yep. There we are.
It was a really good investment.
In terms of specifics, Polly, what about understanding of the planning system or legal frameworks? This might have a particular impact if you're running some sort of land-based business, but how important is it to learn about this, or at least have an awareness of it?
We had a sort of a bit of a principle in Wire that you need kind of just-in-time learning and just-in-time knowledge. It's kind of as and when you need it. And I think things like that, you can't become a planning expert or a legal expert. They're not. It's more about knowing who to go to when you need that information. And that, in a way, it comes back to a little bit what Richard was just saying about being connected into some of these institutions, within your area, is you will get to know who to go to, who's the go-to person when you've got a legal question. So I think you need to be aware that those things exist, but I wouldn't ever attempt to become an expert in any of them, because it will just, will then go and become a lawyer, give up your
exactly.
business.
Go and become a planning expert.
Yes.
We're going to close off in a bit, but before we do, I just want to talk about what's sometimes referred to as the soft stuff. So a resilient mindset, goal setting, all of those elements. Do we talk enough of the importance of this to new entrants, Polly?
I don't think we do. And it was one of the things that we tried to do with our programme. I felt quite strongly that we needed to sort of address some of this, what, some people would dismiss as more sort of fluffy, softer stuff, because I think that's what really gives you resilience in your business. And actually running a business, growing a business, working in a rural area can be very tough. Have a little box, have a little strand, have a little sort of heading where you think about your own well-being, your own mindset, what you are bringing to the business, and where you're sort of renewing your spirit, because you can give and give and give. But all you'll achieve really is burnout. And to grow a business, to start employing people and creating a good place to work where you're growing a business, you need to bring creativity to that, and you need to bring positivity to that. If you're not looking after yourself in a kind of well-being, if you're not nourishing your spirit, your mindset will decline. And it's the creativity, I think, that will go. I think you'll go into survival mode rather than thriving, resilient, creative mode, which is the mode that you need to run a successful business.
And just before we go, I'm going to ask each of you to give me one top tip for starting a rural business today. Richard, let's start with you.
Talk to people who are doing it, and talk to people who've come out of that area as well, because then you understand what some of the pitfalls are. And don't dwell on it, but be rational about it.
Polly?
I'm going to squeeze in two, but they're Number one, don't be alone. Okay. So build your network. Don't get isolated. Have mechanisms for connecting with people. And number two, customer. Don't build a product, some wonderful, fantastic product or services in isolation from understanding who your customer is and what they want.
Super advice. On that note, we'll leave it there. But huge thanks to my guests, Polly Gibb and Dr. Richard Byrne, for coming on today. Thank you for listening, and please talk about this podcast with others if you got something from it. Starting a business is a big thing, but it's also a very exciting thing, and we wish you the best of luck with whatever you decide, whether that is starting your own venture or working for a business. Either way, hopefully today has encouraged you to think about the wider context and the skill sets that you may require for whatever it is that you want to do. I'll see you again on a future podcast, but for now, I'm Ben Eagle, and thank you very much for listening. This podcast was produced by Rural Pod Media for the National Federation of Young Farmers Clubs. The presenter was Ben Eagle, and there was further editorial support from Sarah Palmer. The podcast was supported by DEFRA.